Everybody's phone is exploding right now because 50 Cent, yes, that 50 Cent, the man who has been running a one-man wrecking crew on the entire music industry for 2 decades straight, just had a vault track ripped out of the archives and dumped onto the internet without his permission. And I am telling you right now, the second you hear the words 50 Cent is spitting on this leaked Curtis-era leftover called Sunday Morning, you are going to understand why every executive from Interscope 2 Bad Boy is refreshing their inbox in a cold sweat. Because this is not a song. This is a confession booth wrapped in a soul sample. This is 50 Cent walking into church on a Sunday, pulling the pastor out the pulpit, and preaching a sermon about the streets that would make Rick Ross reach for his rosary. Whispers out of the industry are saying this leak did not happen by accident. Supposedly. Reportedly. Or so they say. Because the vault this record was allegedly locked inside of has been on 50 Cent's own hard drive since 2007, back when Curtis was being assembled, back when 50 Cent was still trading punches with Kanye West on release week, back when the Queen's legend was inches away from ruling the entire genre, and somebody, somehow, decided that on this exact Sunday morning in 2026, the world needed to hear it. Now let me tell you why this is bigger than a leak. Let me tell you why the entire hip-hop internet froze the second this track hit the timeline. Because 50 Cent is not just rapping on this song. 50 Cent is sermonizing. He is confessing. He is standing in the pew, looking dead into the eyes of every rival he has ever buried, and he is saying, out loud, over a soul loop that sounds like it was pulled straight from a black church in South Jamaica, I ain't got to survive. But I'm cleaner than your preacher on Sunday morning. Sit with that for a second. Read that again. Because what 50 Cent is doing on this record is what 50 Cent has always done better than anybody who has ever picked up a microphone. He is turning a thread into a hymn. He is turning a Sunday into a shootout. He is taking the most sacred moment in the American week, the 1 hour where even the roughest man on the block puts on a tie, and 50 Cent is telling you he is dirtier than the man behind the pulpit, cleaner than the man in the pew, and richer than everybody in the parking lot combined. And here's what nobody's saying. This leak dropped days after 50 Cent finished laying down the last frame of his Diddy documentary. Days. Not weeks. Days. So you tell me, friends, in what universe is that a coincidence? In what universe does a Curtis-era vault song titled Sunday Morning leak on a Sunday morning at the exact moment 50 Cent is putting the final nail in Diddy's coffin? The chatter is deafening, and everybody with a comment section is asking the same question. Did 50 Cent leak this himself? Did somebody in his own camp push the button? Or is this the sound of an old enemy trying to flood the algorithm before the documentary drops and drown out the noise? Come to find out, the story goes deeper than the leak itself. Because when you actually sit down with the record, when you actually let the beat breathe, you realize 50 Cent buried at least 4 different messages inside 4 different bars. And every single one of them is aimed at somebody who is still walking around Hollywood pretending they are untouchable. 50 Cent raps about jail being a vacation for his friends. He raps about the coke price rising with the sun. He raps about a taser and a sacrifice on the same bar. And then, right when the beat is about to switch, 50 Cent leans into a bar so cold, so surgical, so obviously aimed at a specific person, that the entire underground is now speculating on which name he is carving into the wall. Like a prayer for me and forgive us before we pop up on that ass with toasters. That is not a punchline. That is a legal notice set to music. That is 50 Cent doing what 50 Cent does, telling you exactly what he is going to do and daring the industry to stop him. But you cannot understand why this leak matters unless you understand what the Curtis era actually was. Rewind to 2007. 50 Cent is the single most powerful voice in commercial hip-hop. He has just moved 872,000 units in a single week with The Massacre. G-Unit is a global brand. Vitamin Water is about to make him a 9-figure man. And 50 Cent is preparing the follow-up, Curtis, an album named after his own government name, an album designed to remind the world that behind the vest and behind the mixtapes there was a human being who grew up in Jamaica, Queens, without a father, without a mother past the age of 8, and without a safety net. And in that studio, in that season, 50 Cent recorded dozens of tracks that never made the final cut. Some of them were shelved because Interscope wanted radio singles. Some of them were shelved because 50 Cent thought the bars gave up too much information. And some of them, apparently, were shelved because they were simply too honest for a world that was still trying to figure out whether 50 Cent was a rapper or a wrestler or a movie star. Sunday Morning is one of those tracks. And now that it has surfaced, it is doing something none of us saw coming. It is repositioning 50 Cent from executive producer back to lyrical assassin. And it is happening at the exact moment the man is dominating every headline in America for a completely different reason. Because let's not forget, in the last 12 months alone, 50 Cent has produced hit television shows on Stars, launched a Louisiana movie studio, sued his own baby mother's family for defamation, publicly humiliated Ja Rule for what feels like the 6,000th time, called out Jay-Z on a podcast, mocked Puffy from behind a wall of subpoena-proof memes, and turned his own life story into a Netflix machine. 50 Cent is not slowing down. 50 Cent is speeding up. And the leak of Sunday Morning is not an accident. It is a reminder. A reminder that before the Empire, before the Emmys, before the executive producer credits, there was a boy from South Jamaica who could out-rap most of the men currently sitting on the Billboard chart. Here is the kicker. Get this. Actually here, the beat itself matters just as much as the bars. Because whoever produced this record, and there is now furious speculation that it was an early Havoc, Alchemist, or even a young Ty 5 session, sampled a soul record that pulls directly from the Black church tradition. And 50 Cent, who has famously said in interviews that he does not attend service, who has famously mocked the prosperity gospel on multiple occasions, chose this beat, of all beats, to record a confession over. That is not random. That is deliberate. That is 50 Cent telling every rapper who has ever wrapped themselves in a cross that he can wear the same cloth better than they can, and he does not even believe in it. And then, right when you think you have the record figured out, 50 Cent switches the whole tone. He goes from confession to declaration. He goes from pew to pavement. He raps about running the streets weekly just to get by. He raps about being the cleanest man in the service on Sunday morning. And then, without warning, without a switch up, without a transition, 50 Cent delivers the line that has now been screen captured on every hip-hop blog on the planet. If you're preaching prosperity, I want a hand. Read that one more time. Because in one bar, 50 Cent has just called out every pastor, every preacher, and every prosperity gospel millionaire from Joel Osteen to the man who allegedly baptized half of Diddy's East Coast enterprise. 50 Cent is not just rapping. 50 Cent is legislating. Now let me widen the lens. Because this leak is not happening in a vacuum. This leak is happening in the middle of the single most turbulent year in modern hip-hop history. Diddy is behind glass. Jay-Z is dodging depositions. Drake is licking wounds from the Kendrick Lamar debacle. Kanye is somewhere in Tokyo rebranding his mental collapse as fashion. And 50 Cent, the last executive of the old empire still standing upright, is dropping a vault track that reminds everybody who put the fear of God into the industry in the first place. The chatter is deafening because every executive from Atlantic to Def Jam knows what 50 Cent is capable of when he catches a second wind. And Sunday Morning is that second wind arriving with a soul sample and a smile. The reactions rolling in from the streets have been nothing short of explosive. Battle rappers are quoting the bars back on livestream. Old G-Unit affiliates are surfacing on Twitter for the first time in years just to co-sign the record. Even producers who have never publicly praised 50 Cent are dropping the fire emoji on the leak because they know, professionally, that what 50 Cent did on this beat is what most rappers spend their entire discography failing to do. He made a soul beat sound dangerous. He made a Sunday feel like a Saturday. He made a confession feel like a threat. Here's what nobody's saying, and this is where the story gets darker than most of you are ready for. Because in the same week this leak dropped, an old associate of 50 Cent from the Queen's era reappeared on a live stream and claimed that the Sunday Morning record was originally intended to be a response to a specific person, a specific incident. and a specific betrayal, and that the reason 50 Cent shelved it in 2007 was because the person it was aimed at had, at the time, made peace behind closed doors. That peace, according to the source, has now expired. Whether that is speculation, wishful thinking, or the real backstory, one thing is undeniable: 50 Cent has not deleted the leak. 50 Cent has not filed a takedown. 50 Cent has not even commented. And in the world of 50 Cent, silence is louder than any statement he has ever made. Everybody who has been in the game long enough knows what it means when 50 Cent goes quiet. When 50 Cent posts memes, he is joking. When 50 Cent goes on Instagram Live, he is toying with you. But when 50 Cent goes silent, when 50 Cent lets a piece of art speak for itself, when 50 Cent lets a bard do the talking that his mouth refuses to do, that is when the industry starts making phone calls. That is when lawyers start drafting letters. That is when the men in the shadow start whispering into the phones of the men in the light. And right now, at this exact moment, on this exact Sunday morning, the phones are ringing. Get this. Actually here, the streaming numbers on the unofficial rips of Sunday Morning have already crossed a mark that most signed rappers cannot hit with a full press cycle. The song is being played on repeat inside barbershops from Brooklyn to Bankhead. The bars are being tattooed on forearms in real time. And 50 Cent has not spent a single dollar on marketing this record because 50 Cent has never had to. 50 Cent's marketing is the myth. 50 Cent's promotion is the personality. And 50 Cent's press cycle, at this point in his career, is the reaction of 100 million people who grew up believing that Curtis Jackson could not be counted out no matter how many times the industry tried to bury him. And here's what nobody's saying about Curtis Jackson himself. Because behind the mogul, behind the Emmy campaigns, behind the boxing promotions and the tequila brand and the film studio in Shreveport, there is still a man who watched his mother get killed when he was 8 years old. There is still a man who took 9 bullets to the face and torso and survived. There is still a man who was told by every major label executive in 1999 that he would never sell records because his story was too dark for radio. And that man, that same Curtis Jackson, is the one whose voice you are hearing on Sunday Morning. That is why the record cuts different. That is why the bars feel heavier than the beat should be able to hold. That is why every producer in the game is now sitting at their DAW trying to reverse engineer why a leftover from 2007 sounds better than most of the singles trying to chart in 2026. Sit with this. Read that again. Because the industry has spent the better part of a decade trying to convince the public that 50 Cent is finished as a rapper. They said he is too focused on television. They said he is too rich to care about bars. They said the fire is gone. And then a vault track leaks on a Sunday morning and 50 Cent proves, without lifting a finger, without posting a single tweet, without even acknowledging the leak, that the fire never left. It was just archived. And now the question every fan is asking, every enemy is fearing, and every executive is texting each other about, is simple. If this is what 50 Cent shelved, what does he still have in the vault? If Sunday Morning was the leftover, what was the main course? If the throwaway sounds like this, what does the album sound like, the one everyone in his inner circle is now begging him to release before the year is over? Because here's the kicker. Sources within his orbit have said, and remember, supposedly, reportedly, or so they say, that 50 Cent has been quietly stockpiling records for close to 3 years. 3 years of features. 3 years of solo cuts. 3 years of vault sessions with producers whose names would freeze the timeline if they were revealed today. And Sunday Morning, the record that is right now setting the entire genre on fire, is one of the oldest songs on that stockpile. It is nearly 2 decades old. It is a Curtis-era leftover. And it is running laps around the current top of the Billboard chart on the strength of a soul loop and one man's voice. The insider's insider tells me that the leak of this record was not just a fan pulling a file from a hard drive. The insider's insider tells me that this was strategic, that somebody very close to 50 Cent decided that the industry needed a reminder. And a reminder shaped like a leaked vault track from 2007 was the most efficient way to deliver the message without exposing 50 Cent to any legal liability. Because think about it. If 50 Cent releases this song officially, the industry can shrug and say it is nostalgia. But if the song leaks, if the song appears in the wild, uncontrolled, unpromoted, then the reaction is real, the streams are organic, and the myth grows. That is chess. That is not luck. That is 50 Cent playing 3 moves ahead of every other rapper in the game while everybody else is still figuring out the board. And it is not just the fans. It is the elders. It is Fat Joe reposting the record with a caption in Spanish. It is Nas reportedly asking his engineer to pull up the file. It is Jadakiss allegedly texting Shaw Money XL to confirm what year this was recorded. It is the entire class of rappers who came up in the Curtis era, all of them, publicly and privately, admitting that whatever they thought about 50 Cent as a businessman, as a lyricist, he is still one of the deadliest to ever hold the pen. Here's what nobody's saying about the beat. The soul loop on Sunday Morning is being sampled from a record that most listeners have never heard, but that gospel scholars will recognize immediately. It is a church-adjacent chord progression that pulls directly from the Black Southern preaching tradition. And 50 Cent, a man from Queens, a man who has famously said his introduction to spirituality came through the fear of dying, chose to lay down a full 3 verses over that exact texture. That choice was intentional. That choice was theological. And whether or not 50 Cent will ever admit it, the record functions as the closest thing he has ever made to a spiritual autobiography. Sit with this. Read that again. Because for a rapper who has spent 25 years wearing a bulletproof vest as an aesthetic, for a rapper who has spent his entire career mocking sincerity, for a rapper who built an empire on the pillars of ruthlessness and revenge, 50 Cent has now, quietly, through a leaked track that was never even meant for the public, revealed the softest, most reflective corner of his own artistry. He is not going to say that out loud. He does not have to. The record is doing it for him. Everybody with a functioning ear knows what happens next. Because when 50 Cent leaks like this, the industry moves. Rappers who have been in hibernation start recording. Executives who have been hiding start emailing. And fans who have been claiming for a decade that hip-hop is dead start streaming a 2007 leftover on repeat because it slaps harder than anything on the current chart. Come to find out, the timing of this leak is not just tied to the Diddy documentary. The timing is tied to something bigger. Because 50 Cent is reportedly, allegedly, and supposedly sitting on an announcement, one that could reshape the entire independent hip-hop landscape, and the leak of Sunday Morning is the pressure release valve, the appetizer, the warning shot before the cannon fires. Whether that announcement is an album, a label, a documentary series, or the long-rumored joint project with a producer whose name I am not going to say yet, one thing is certain, 50 Cent is not done. 50 Cent is just getting started. Again. The chatter is deafening. The comment sections are on fire. The streams are climbing. And somewhere in the Hamptons or in Shreveport or in a private booth in Manhattan, Curtis Jackson is sitting back with a glass of Branson and watching the reaction. Because he knew. He always knew. He shelved this record for 18 years and waited for the exact moment when its release would hit the hardest, and that moment is right now, on a Sunday morning in 2026, in the middle of the most explosive chapter of his career. So, what happens next? Does 50 Cent release the full vault? Does 50 Cent sue whoever leaked Sunday Morning, or does he quietly send them a thank you note? Does the industry finally admit that Curtis Jackson has been the smartest man in the room for the last 20 years? Or do we watch another cycle of pretending like his catalog is not still one of the strongest in the genre? Only 50 Cent knows the answer. And 50 Cent, as we have already established, is currently doing the loudest thing a man in his position can do. He is saying absolutely nothing. Everybody has a theory. Some say this leak is the beginning of a full vault campaign. Others say it is a soft launch for a Curtis anniversary re-release. A loud minority is convinced that 50 Cent is preparing a diss track aimed at a name we have not heard him mention publicly in years, and that Sunday Morning is the emotional table setting before the war begins. Whichever theory turns out to be right, one thing is undeniable. 50 Cent has just, without lifting a finger, dominated the entire hip-hop internet with a song he recorded before the iPhone existed. That is not a rapper. That is not a mogul. That is a phenomenon. So drop your theories below. Tell me if you think 50 Cent leaked Sunday morning himself or if somebody else pushed the button. Tell me who you think the specific bars are aimed at. Tell me whether 50 is about to bury the whole industry with a full vault release before the end of the year, or whether this is just one warning shot before the real barrage begins. Because the streets are talking. The industry is nervous. And 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson, the man from Southside Jamaica, Queens, the executive, the MC, the myth, is one leak away from reminding the entire genre exactly who runs the empire when the sun comes up on a Sunday morning. The vault is open. The record is playing. The industry is watching. And whatever 50 Cent decides to do next, one thing is certain, you do not want to miss it. Because when 50 Cent moves, everything moves with him. And right now, at this exact moment, 50 Cent is moving.